Welcome to the Contrarians, where we are right and you are wrong. I'm Julio.
And I'm Alex. Here on the show, we rage against the Rotten Tomatoes machine. For the first half of each episode, Contrarians Corner, we trash the fresh red tomatoes and praise the rotten green splotches, making our case any way we can.
The aptly titled Real Talk serves as the second half of each episode. This is where we discuss our true feelings on the movie we're covering. For more information on our podcast and to browse past episodes, you can head over to our website, wearethecontrarians.com.
From there, you can also access our Patreon and merchandise, because capitalism.
If you enjoy our attempts at comedic film discussions, we encourage you to subscribe and leave us a review on whatever podcatcher you use.
If you'd like to reach out to us directly, that's what social media is for. You can find us on most platforms as @ContrarianPrime.
You can also see what we look like if you go to youtube.com/@ContrarianPrime, and you can contact us by email at wearethecontrarians@gmail.com.
I think that covers it.
Then it's time for the podcast. And we are recording for Contrarians Corner for Unforgiven.
Hello, and welcome to the Contrarians, where we're right and you're wrong. My name is Alex, joined as always, I guess, for this installment on horseback by my friend, co-host, and co-pilot in the never-ending voyage of the contrary, Julio Oliveira. Here today to talk about the 1992 Best Picture winner, not to be confused with the 1960 Burt Lancaster, Audrey Hepburn film The Unforgiven, directed by John Huston. Not to be confused with The Unforgiven, the ballad from Metallica's iconic Black album. And most of all, not to be confused with the series of pay-per-views presented by the World Wrestling Federation from 1998 until 2008, the decade-long tradition of the pay-per-view every September that was Unforgiven. Before any of y'all wrestling fans listening, I know the first one was in April. After that, for 9 years in a row, it was in September.
Do you have a ranking of all these Unforgivens? Is there one that is forgiven because it makes it to the top?
I guarantee I've watched all these at some point in my life. If I'm just thinking of the Unforgiven pay-per-view lineage, 2005, the Matt Hardy Edge Steel Cage match is what comes to mind. That's probably like a top 100 WWF match of all time. Incredible piece of business. If you're even just a slight wrestling fan, you should go check that out. One of Edge's best matches.
Which one features a cameo from Gene Hackman?
That would be Unforgiven. Unforgiven. In 1999, he runs in on the boiler room brawl between the Big Show and Mankind, and he says, "There's no whore money here. No whore's gold." I was thinking of starting this off just by reciting the lyrics to "The Unforgiven" by Metallica. I do love that song. I think you could make the argument that when Metallica jumped the shark is when they had the song Unforgiven 2. They wrote a sequel to one of their songs. So the good news is, at least for the purposes of what we do on this podcast, this movie was very forgiven. It was so forgiven, it won the Best Picture award at the 1993, I guess it would have been, Academy Awards. Also won Best Director, and somehow Clint Eastwood was nominated for Best Actor.
He plays the best Clint Eastwood anybody could play.
Dude, I can't. From this point forward, or from, I guess, the time period of when I saw that clip, I'll never be able to get it out of my head. That clip of Ray Liotta being asked who the most overrated actor of the 80s and 90s was. And he's like, Clint Eastwood. And the you know what I'm talking about?
No.
Oh, dude, it's so good. I can't remember the name of the guy whose talk show it was, but the guests are Jennifer Lopez and Ray Liotta. And the way he does it, I can't do it because my mouth is kind of dry right now, but he does that thing where he's like, Clint Eastwood, probably. Like, he just blows out, and then the crowd's kind of like, oh, and he goes, I don't give a shit. So now every time I watch a Clint Eastwood performance, I'm just like, yeah, because this is the same guy in Gran Torino and in $1 Million Baby. And I'm a big Outlaw Josie Wales fan, but the Outlaw Josie Wales. Julio, first time seeing Unforgiven, or are you familiar with this?
Yeah. No. This is, even though I am not a Western person, I think we probably established that the first time we did a Western, which might have been what, Magnificent Seven? I think that was our very first in the Contrarian
that sounds
timeline.
Right.
Yeah. Probably said it then, probably said it when we did the Wild Bunch. I mean, Western is not something that I gravitate to, even though there's several that I've watched and I liked. I mean, even Magnificent Seven and Wild Bunch wound up being on the positive side.
Bone Tomahawk.
Bone Tomahawk. Yeah, but see, that one is kind of like that's more hardcore than.
Did you like 310 to Yuma, the remake with Russell Crowe and? Yeah, okay. I knew you felt strongly about it one way or the other. I couldn't remember what it was.
There is something, and we'll get into it because that applies to this movie. There's something about the rules of the Wild West that I just have trouble wrapping my head around. I was like, sometimes it's okay to break the law, and sometimes it's 100% not okay to break the law. And that I just want consistency. Like, can you kill the sheriff? Is it a big deal if you kill the sheriff? It's not a big deal if you just shoot somebody. You know, it seems like it's a big deal when it suits the story. And that is, I mean, very apparent in this Western and in something like 310 to Yuma, where it's the Wild West. It's almost like there's no civilization, anything goes, but we have to take this guy, this criminal that is a real danger, that if anybody deserves to be killed, is this guy. But no, we're going to take him, you know, in this journey. And along the way, we're going to lose people because we didn't kill him. I was like, make up your mind, right? Is this a ruthless environment or isn't it? So no, I have issues with that. And every time I say I don't like it, people give me the side eye, like it's some sort of masterpiece. Give me the side eye when I tell you I don't like Unforgiven. Yeah. That one at least got the Oscars backing it up. 310 to Yuma, who thinks about 310 to Yuma anymore? Ben Foster, because I think that was the peak of his Ben Fosterness.
So, Julio, returning to the Contrarians on this episode is David Webb Peoples, a screenwriter who has come up numerous times in Contrarians history in our catalog. So that's the phrase I was looking for there. Can you name when we've discussed Mr. Peoples' work?
Of course, Alex. I've met Mr. Peoples and his lovely wife. I posted a picture on our Patreon where I was just between the two of them, a big smile. I don't think I've ever smiled that big in the last 20 years. He's the writer of 12 Monkeys.
He is. He also wrote another movie we covered. Do you recall what that was?
La Jetée?
Soldier, starring Kurt Russell and directed by Paul W.S. Anderson.
Okay, that's not a Contrarians movie. That's a Spit and Polish movie.
Well, we talked about it and we recorded our thoughts on it. Yes,
we did. But, you know, if it's not on the main timeline, it fades away from my memory.
Okay, so also on a recent After Hours, I discussed my first viewing of the 1992 movie Hero, starring Dustin Hoffman, Gina Davis, and Andy Garcia, and he wrote that as well. So he's all over the place.
Now is he flying solo on this one, or did he bring his wife? Because it's him and his wife that wrote 12 Monkeys.
According to the credits for this, it is just David Peoples, and it looks like he got nominated solo for Best Original Screenplay.
Man, he told Janet, sorry, honey, this is a man's movie.
No shit. He's like, you can hang out with Francis Fisher for a day if you want to.
You can punch up the dialogue for all the women, the 5 minutes of screen time they get.
Just because we let them smelly fools ride us like horses don't mean we gotta let them brand us like horses. Maybe we ain't nothing but whores, but by God, we ain't horses.
A towering 96% on Rotten Tomatoes with that certified fresh logo right next to it. 93% popcorn meter. Popcorn meter? I forgot that it has a name now.
Yeah.
So the tomato meter and the popcorn meter both glowing red as though it were the Northern Lights. Julio, which quotes did you pull for us? What were the critics saying then, now, forever about Unforgiven?
It's a lot of red tomatoes, Alex. Just an overwhelming amount of red tomatoes on the Rotten Tomatoes website. We're going to start with Stephen Maiden from Financial Times, who says, Clint Eastwood's brilliant and harrowing Unforgiven packs all the punch of a good Western without indulging in the plot cliches and moral certitudes so often inherent in the genre. Alex, I think that this movie is a collection of Western cliches. That's why it's so celebrated, because people that love Westerns were like, finally, they're back. And just like I remembered, only a little bloodier. It's a little more cussing.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of foul language in this.
But it's still the same thing. I mean, it's Eastwood had been making these movies for years. This is how he paid rent.
This was his retirement tour. This is the one, though, where he's old and withered.
Until it was time for Unforgiven 2.
That's right.
James Vance from Tulsa World says it's not a movie for kids, but it's a fine movie for any adult who doesn't mind thinking a little after the hot lead has flown. Who feels the need to say that this is not a movie for kids?
Also, like the idea that this is like the thinking man's movie is like,
yeah,
it's not even one of those things where the metaphors are like, you know, thicker than pancakes. It's like spelled out for you entirely. You know, he says we all have it coming. Like, I'm like thinking of this guy. What is the critic's name?
James Vance.
James Vance driving home afterwards, and he's there, like, you know, he's stuck in traffic going to work the Monday morning after, and he's like, "Oh shit."
Clint Eastwood's character spends the entire movie talking about his character arc. I'm not that man anymore. I'm not that man anymore. Wait, I am that man.
Oh, he was an alcoholic.
Next, Walter Chaw from Film Freak Central.
Hey.
The film, at its heart, is the first in a line of revisionist superhero movies. What?
Now that's more confusing than anything that happens in this movie.
So is Clint Eastwood is William Money the original superhero?
Is he supposed to be like the original Tony Stark?
Yeah, he can't be the original Batman because Keaton had already taken that in '89.
And also, he has kids. Bruce Wayne doesn't have children.
Well, I mean, I'm sure he does. We just don't see them. Bruce Wayne gets around.
That's true.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if Walter Shaw's saying that you can trace a direct line from Unforgiven to maybe, what was the first like dark superhero movie? The Crow?
Tim Burton's Batman.
Well, no. Okay, so you trace it backwards?
Batman Returns is pretty dark, but that was the same year. So, yeah, you can say The Crow.
The Crow, maybe. Revision superhero movies. Blade. I don't know, Walter. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Eastwood is not wearing a cape.
What on earth are you on about, as Tom Hardy would say?
We're going to close with Luke White Thompson from the New Times, who says he's old, he's pissed, and he's going to kill everyone. Dude, it's Clint. Enough said.
Mm-hmm.
This is an Eastwood fanboy. Back in 92, Alex, I guess it was kind of a novelty to see old Clint Eastwood, right? That was a thing?
I guess. Yeah, I mean, he's Dirty Harry.
It's not a thing now. Like, I mean, we see it, and it's like, yeah, that's
what are you talking about? That was the entirety, like, of the idea of the marketing behind Gran Torino. It was like, it's old, pissed off Clint Eastwood.
Okay, that's Unforgiven too. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like, Unforgiven is the first
domestic.
Unforgiven is the first time that Eastwood said, I'm aging and I'm going to use that to my advantage. I'm going to just project this persona of the old cowboy and people are going to go nuts because they're used to seeing me as Dirty Harry and like the man with no name and whatever. But there's like, what if he was old and still a badass? And then he kind of made a career out of that for, I don't know, 10 years or so. And I think the Gran Torino is when he, much like with Unforgiven 2, he jumped the shark. It was like, who takes this seriously anymore? And it's not that he stopped, because you can list a number of movies where Clint Eastwood is playing old Clint Eastwood after Gran Torino, and it's just diminishing returns. That's what I mean. Like, I don't think if you see old Clint Eastwood here, whether he's being a badass or not, like in a movie today, nobody cares. That's just Clint Eastwood.
Like I was saying, you don't look no meaner than hell, cold-blooded damn killer.
Maybe I ain't.
Yeah, well, Uncle Pete says you was the meanest goddamn son of a bitch alive. And if I ever wanted a partner for a killing, you were the worst one.
All right. Released on August 7th of 1992. It's time to be Unforgiven. In 1880, in Big Whiskey, Wyoming, a cowboy named Quick Mike slashes prostitute Delilah Fitzgerald's face with a knife, permanently disfiguring her after she laughs at his small penis. Off to a good start here.
Classic Western trope.
As punishment, Sheriff Little Bill Daggett orders Mike and his associate, who was with him at the brothel, Davy Bunting, to turn over several of their horses to Delilah's employer, Skinny Dubois, for his loss of revenue. Outraged, the prostitutes offer a $1,000 bounty for the cowboys' deaths. One thing that's left out here is that we get some scrolling text to start this movie about
A long time ago.
in a galaxy far, far away. The wife of Clint Eastwood was she married, and it establishes here that he was a thieving murderer, and that her mother was very upset that she married such a bad dude, and that she eventually would die due to illness and was buried basically on the family plot there. That's what is established before we immediately go to the small penis jokes.
Yeah, Clint Eastwood was married to a woman that liked bad boys. Is there supposed to be, are we supposed to draw a correlation between the fact that she married a bad man and then she died of illness? Is the movie opening by telling you that that's karma? That's what she gets for marrying a well-known outlaw?
Maybe is that it's trying to say that, you burn the candle at both ends, it's going to burn out quicker. So I don't know what the fuck it's trying to say.
I can tell you this movie is not kind to women overall. If
You don't say.
If I didn't know any better, I would have thought it was a Lars von Trier joint.
Jesus. Little Bill Daggett, the sheriff, though, Gene Hackman, would go on to get a Best Supporting Actor nomination. The elusive Gene Hackman, as far as Contrarians history goes. Get Shorty, and what else do we have?
That might be it, man.
Gene Hackman is, one of those celebrated actors who he's not like Clint Eastwood. He's not in a bunch of movies. I mean, he's in the Superman movies, and he's in Royal Tenenbaums, and he's in Bonnie and Clyde, Get Shorty.
I mean, that's the thing. In between playing Lex Luthor in the Superman movies and playing Royal Tenenbaum in the Royal Tenenbaums, I think that's where Unforgiven sits. And it's like Gene Hackman trying to be a badass, right? Trying to convince us that he doesn't have to be the goofy comic book villain. He can be a man that can be taken seriously. Do you buy him as the man that runs the town?
I mean, I bought it in Welcome to Mooseport, so why wouldn't I buy it here?
Because Clint Eastwood is not Ray Romano?
He's very loud, and he definitely seems like someone, police chiefs are officials that rise to the ranks based on merit. Sheriffs are voted into position. And a lot of times, if you can believe it, Julio, in small podunk-ass towns, some weird cats can get nominated to levels of sheriff or mayor or something like that. So I believe here in this town that consists of maybe 30 people that, yeah, he's the sheriff. But, man, you put him in charge of, like, Chicago or something, he's going to get eaten alive.
Yeah, I agree. I think that there is the only reason that he's a top dog in that town is because there's really not much in the way of opposition. And that makes for a very simple movie, right? Because this movie would be a lot more complex if somehow Gene Hackman was presiding over a town that was full of smart people, smart characters, right? People that question the fact that he's, why do we have to listen to this asshole, right? He can't even buy a proper house. But no, everybody that's there is just either in awe of Little Bill or scared of Little Bill, but nobody ever pushes back. So it's just, this movie is just so simple in the way that it presents the story, its conflicts. I can't believe that it's that long because it's, we're always looking out for long run times and how to shorten them. And this could have easily been like a 90-minute movie, if not shorter, because there's nothing to it. It's just very like point A to point B to point C to like Eastwood killing everybody.
Frances Fisher, Julio. Why did we recently talk about her?
Erin Brockovich. It's Erin Brockovich's Frances Fisher.
Thank you. Leading into this, I'm trying to think of the biggest thing she would have done. LA Story, maybe?
CSI?
Striptease, of course, wasn't for several years after this, and Titanic would come 5 years after the fact. So she is like the head mistress. We've learned the vernacular proper several times in the course of this, and I always forget it, so apologies. But yeah, they pool their money together, and they've been able to save quite a bit because it doesn't seem like there's too much to do in this town but visit the whorehouse and drink. And so what do you do when you drink? Dude, especially it's right upstairs. There's a staircase in the bar that leads you upstairs to the whorehouse. So their plan is we're going to put a bounty out, and that's what they do.
How do you do that, though? Going back to me trying to grasp how things work in the Old West.
Put it on Twitter.
Exactly. I was like, there's no internet. There's no social media. Do you have like one dude just handing out flyers?
That's a good question. Because like I can tell you how it happens in other movies, or I can like theorize in my head how it happens, but it's not explained in this. There's just this kid that shows up in the next scene and is like, hey, man, several cities over, they're paying $1,000 to kill these two guys. And then skipping ahead, we find out the way they're hunting these guys is these crudely drawn pictures in charcoal of these faces that look like caricatures you get at the state fair.
They look like every cowboy in the movie. And I think that maybe the idea is that if I have to do the movie's work for it, right? And this would have been wonderful to see, like a little montage where every client they have, they tell, like, please spread the word. Because, you know, you see a lot of traffic in that bar. And so every time that they have a John, they tell them about the bounty. I'm like, you don't have to collect it, but tell your friends. And that's how the word spreads. And that would have been a wonderful bit of world building, because it would have been Clint Eastwood painting this world as like, look, this is how it was back then. We didn't have Facebook, but we had the local whorehouse. That's how you spread the news.
When they offer up as like a make good to the prostitute they slice up, Delilah, it's like this pony, and she kind of looks at it like, oh, I'd like to have that pony. And then Frances Fisher's like, she doesn't want your damn pony, and starts throwing like mud at him, like, get out of town.
Did you feel that they were trying to make us care for that guy? There's the two guys, the absolute monster that cuts up the girl, and then his buddy, who, I mean, I'm sorry, you're friends with him, so I don't really feel bad for him, later on when he finally gets his. But then they have this moment, this scene where he's like, no, I brought a pony for the girl.
Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah, is that supposed to make him sympathetic, so then later we feel bad when he gets shot? I don't think so. I think you need to try a little harder.
A pony? She ain't got no face left. You're gonna give her a goddamn mangy pony?
She ain't mangy, man.
Get out of here!
In Hodgman County, Kansas, a boastful young man visits Will Money's hog farm. He calls himself the Schofield Kid and claims to be an experienced bounty hunter looking for help pursuing the cowboys. Formerly a notorious outlaw and murderer, Will is now a repentant widower raising two children. After initially refusing to help, Will realizes that his farm is failing and his children's future is in jeopardy. He recruits his friend Ned Logan, another retired outlaw, and they catch up with the kid, who they discover is severely nearsighted. So we get Clint Eastwood. My first quote from the movie I have written down is, this kid explains to him the situation. They cut her face up, and then Clint Eastwood just looks off longingly into the distance and goes, Jesus, and then takes a drink.
Clint Eastwood getting dragged through the mud by a pig.
Yeah.
Who wanted to see that? Who wanted, look, this is funny because it's coming.
The Academy, apparently.
That's true. This is coming on the heels of, not it's necessarily on the heels, but this is coming after our Saving Private Ryan episode, in the sense that that was the last movie that we tackled, right? Before our anniversary break. I think that we can categorically say that there is a genre of movie that let's take the fun out of genre. And so Saving Private Ryan does it with war movies. You could say that Watchmen does it with superhero movies, as we covered in that episode. This does it for Westerns. It's Clint Eastwood saying, hey, all that stuff that you liked seeing me in, those fun Westerns where we like shot at people and we just laughed about it, we're going to take the fun out of that. And we're going to make it gritty and nasty, but it's still going to be kind of nonsensical in the way that the plot works. And so in an effort, I guess, to demolish the myth that he has become in the previous decades, he just portrays himself as a complete loser. Like, Will Mooney can't even get on his horse. Do you buy it, Alex? Especially when you know, because we've both seen this movie before, right? Like, when you know that by the end, at the climax, he's going to be a badass again. Or do you think that this is Clint Eastwood trying a little too hard to tell us, no, really, I'm a loser?
Yeah, I mean, that's the whole thing with Gran Torino. I know I keep going back to that, but that's basically what the evolution of this movie was. Because in that, too, you know, he's this old bitter man that all these minorities are moving into my neighborhood. And you're like, oh, I wonder if he'll become understanding and accepting of their cultures by the end. And then here, yeah, you see this and you've seen the poster. And unless you've been living under a rock, you know that he comes back and kicks ass. So when I watch it now, I just think of like, he's trying to make himself look domesticated and like how bad it sucks, a la Aaron Eckhart in Aaron Brockovich, and all he wants to do is get out there with the boys and kill some innocent people.
Man, Aaron Brockovich getting 2 mentions in one episode. What are the odds? Okay, but my question stands. Like, forget the Academy. Who really wanted to see this? You can imagine you grew up with Clint Eastwood, not you, but I'm saying, you people in the audience in the 90s.
And they take it a step further. There's the sequence that followed this is him unable to hit like a can with a gun.
Yeah.
Like he's a terrible shot now.
Is this how those Last Jedi haters felt when they saw Luke, like with the beard and throwing his lightsaber away? Is that the equivalent? Is the Last Jedi like the entry where like, let's take the fun out of Star Wars? It's look, I don't even care about the Western genre, but it felt unnecessary. Like, okay, you're trying a little too hard. Now, as far as a kid, and I know I've made this reference before, but it's instantly what I always go to when somebody has a big revelation about their side or lack thereof. It's the Seabiscuit moment. Could you tell, speaking of things that are obvious and that are a little too, where Eastwood's trying a little too hard, could you tell that this kid was not a killer despite everything he was saying?
He seemed a bit too eager to be there for sure.
Right? I mean, Eastwood builds it up like it's going to be a big reveal later, but I think that anybody that's watched like a couple of movies can tell that this kid's just full of shit.
Yeah, I agree. And then the whole argument of like, I can see it's apparent he can't because he's shooting a gun in like the exact opposite direction of where they're coming in. Ned, we mentioned, by the way, need to call out, Morgan Freeman shows up and he's delightful as Morgan Freeman typically is. So, of course, he's relegated to jokes about jacking off and how horny he is and unfortunately gets the worst outcome of anybody in this movie.
Can you imagine like just going, I guess he walked away with an Oscar. He got the Oscar, right?
Morgan Freeman? No, he wasn't even nominated.
What?
No.
I mean, I guess that explains why he won for $1 Million Baby a few years later, but still, I can't believe I thought that this was an Oscar win for him. Oh, that's even worse. Because I was about to say, can you imagine? You're Morgan Freeman. You're like, yeah, sure, I'll sign up for this badass Western where Clint Eastwood is going to show that just because he's old doesn't mean that he can't kick ass. And it was like, oh, well, this is a script. You're just playing second fiddle to him and going to be comic relief. And then you're not going to get to kill anybody.
Yeah, Gene Hackman won for Best Supporting Actor. So it went with Unforgiven, but not with Morgan Freeman.
Man, I'm going to have to look that up on YouTube just to see Freeman's face when Whitey wins.
He's just got the Joaquin Phoenix just shaking his head. Let me out of here, man. But yeah, they're on their way into town. Tensions are growing locally as they know that the word is out. Back in Big Whiskey, British-born gunfighter English Bob, an old acquaintance and rival of Little Bill, seeks the bounty. He arrives into town with his biographer, W.W. Beauchamp, as he refers to him and introduces him so excitedly, who naively believes Bob's tall tales. It's like fucking Hulk Hogan's biographer, man. Oh, yeah? Is this really what happened? Enforcing the town's anti-gun law, Little Bill, with his deputies, disarm Bob and beat him savagely to discourage others from attempting to claim the bounty. Bob, humiliated, is banished from the town the next morning, but Beauchamp stays out of a fascination for the sheriff, who debunks many of the romantic notions Beauchamp has about the Wild West. Little Bill explains to Beauchamp that the best attribute for a gunslinger is to be cool-headed under fire rather than have the quickest draw and to always kill the best shooter first. Now, one thing that's left out of this story here is that we get some urine humor, Julio. What's the actor's name who plays the biographer?
That's Saul Rubinek.
Yeah, he pisses his pants. It's hilarious.
Because Gene Hackman has to be a badass. This entire how much time do we spend with the British guy? It's Richard Harris. It's the first Dumbledore.
Way too much,
right? Considering that it doesn't do anything for the movie that we didn't know already. I mean, what is the point of this dude showing in? He doesn't stick around. It's not even like he's going to somehow interact with Clint Eastwood or Morgan Freeman or anybody. Or he shows up just so that Gene Hackman can beat him up and then send him away.
Could have been done so much quicker too. Like it establishes this character. It's like in the beginning where we see him on the train and he bets this local yokel he can shoot more pheasants than he can, and it establishes that, oh yeah, he's got a quick draw. but it never pays off. He just comes to town and he gets like a shave and a haircut, and then he gets beat up and run out of town.
The entire point is to show us that Gene Hackman is a badass, that he's a man to be feared. But we already knew that. We saw him be an asshole and then just be feared already in the first 30 minutes of the movie. And he doesn't really do anything. Like, if you wanted to just add the biographer character, you could just have him have a biographer from the beginning. Like, I think that would be more fun, right? He's telling a story to his biographer when he's interrupted because some guy cut up one of the girls upstairs at the bar. And, that you just shave 20 minutes off this movie by getting rid of that entire subplot. It takes them forever to get where they're going. Like Eastwood, Morgan Freeman, and the kid, the Scofield kid. They're just on their horses. It feels like for half the movie, maybe more.
It goes on a considerable length of time that I felt, even if you wanted to keep the runtime of the movie, you could have spent that with like, do some flashbacks or some shit with Clint Eastwood and Morgan Freeman to like, so we know what their relationship was like before. And yeah, it didn't vibe.
You know what I want? I want the flashback of Morgan Freeman's wedding, and Clint Eastwood shows up, and Morgan Freeman's soon-to-be wife gives him the look because he was not invited. Because the movie establishes that she doesn't like him, and you could just Morgan Freeman sweet talking his bride into like, no, we'll just let him stay. He's my friend.
She don't like it much, does she? You riding off with me, Sally? Gave me the evil eye. Well, Sally's engine and engines ain't over friendly, Will.
This is where, when he's beating the shit out of Richard Harris, he says, "There's no whore's gold here," because he's trying to send a message that no one else comes in. On the trail, Morgan Freeman is already a bit horny and starts talking about it with Clint Eastwood, since he doesn't have a wife anymore. He's like, "So you just use your hand?" And Clint Eastwood's like, "I don't miss it all that much." It's like, oh, all right. To each their own, man.
Is this the most sexual Morgan Freeman you've ever seen?
He gets pretty randy in The Bucket List. There's that part where he like comes up behind his wife in that movie and simulates doggy style with her. And I was like, Jesus Christ, Morgan Freeman, this is supposed to be a family romp.
Oh, God, I've forgotten about that. See, in my mind, he's still venerated actor Morgan Freeman, who would never stoop to something as common as sex.
He's too intellectual for it. He's like Dr. Manhattan. He can send like his clone mentally to do it. He's too busy doing other things to save the world. Yeah.
Here, he starts by talking about masturbation. Later on, we don't see him get laid. And I don't know if that would have been too much. Can you imagine?
He definitely does. He's like, I'm going to go get something for myself. And then we see him like collecting his clothes and jumping out the back window. It's like, Morgan, you old dog. There is a part I laughed at where they're going to split the $1,000 three ways. And I was like, do they understand that's like an infinite number? I was really hoping when the kid goes, what's 1,000 split three ways? Clint Eastwood was going to go 333, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3. We get Gene Hackman's story time, as we talked about. The WW kid is just falling in love with him now, and the idea is that he's perpetuating about the Wild West. It's raining at one point too, and we learn that Gene Hackman in this is a amateur carpenter. He's brushing up on his carpentry skills, and
that's his quirk.
Yeah, the house they're in's leaking, and so Beauchamp tells him you should hang the carpenter. And then Gene Hackman gets real serious, like, what?
Do you think it would have shot Beauchamp if they hadn't been interrupted? Because I think that's when he gets called about the fact that Clint Eastwood, Morgan Freeman, and the Scofield kid had finally made it to town.
Yeah, that's when they get like ushered out because there's a doings a transpiring, and it's because the crew made it to town. Along the way, because it's the Wild West, Clint Eastwood got really fucking sick, picked up a bug somewhere.
Got the Rona.
And yeah, for real, he came into town to get the vaccine. And Gene Hackman's like, there will be no vaccines in my town. But he's sick to the point of like delusional and hallucinating. He's saying weird things. And so, of course, Morgan Freeman leaves him on his own to go get his fuck on. And then he's confronted by Gene Hackman, who My note says here, I'm starting to think that Gene Hackman is supposed to be a bully in this movie. And he's just an asshole to him. And Clint Eastwood's like, I ain't hurting nobody, which he's not.
But he was planning to.
Yeah. So he gets the shit beat out of him.
So, okay, where do you stand on the morality of everything that's happening here? I don't think the movie is interested in us questioning it, but Little Bill, is he in the wrong for wanting to stop this business transaction? It's the Wild West. So again, like, I don't know, like, it's like bounties. Weren't those kind of things okay? Right? So it's not against the law to hire somebody to kill somebody back then, back in the Old West, right?
I think it all stems from he doesn't want to look weak. He doesn't want people in his town getting killed by bounty hunters. He is the law, and he wants to maintain it. So basically, so he doesn't lose face.
Okay, now, do you think Eastwood in particular, is he in the right? Is he in the wrong? Like, is it a bad thing that he's going to go kill these guys for money? Like, these guys in particular.
Yeah, I don't feel terribly sorry for these guys being so insecure that they do something really stupid, and then because of the time periods, some women, pool their money together, like, fuck it, let's kill them. I don't have too much sympathy for that.
Yeah, me either. I think, again, that the movie would be more interesting if I felt conflicted about it. Because Eastwood keeps talking about how he used to be a badass, and man, they say it twice at least, that he killed women and children.
Mm-hmm.
And, well, that doesn't translate into what we see in the movie. Like, in the movie, we just see a dude that's kind of like, we see a dude that's doing a good thing. he's gonna get rid of scum. And so I wish that the bounty was something that was a little more, that gave me a little more conflict, right? They hire him to kill somebody that might not be a monster. Maybe it's just somebody that didn't pay his tab, or, maybe he was cheating. Somebody that cheated on one of the girls. And so now it's more of a crime of passion, a bounty of passion. Something that makes me think, okay, well, who's in the right? Like, maybe Gene Hackman is in the right for trying to stop this from happening. But as it is, it's just very black and white. Gene Hackman is a complete asshole that is trying to protect people that pretty much deserve to be shot. And Clint Eastwood, he keeps telling you that he's a monster. He used to be a monster, but he's kind of doing a good thing. So there's really nothing to chew on. I just sit there waiting for Clint Eastwood to wake up in the last 20 minutes of the movie.
What's your name?
William? Hendershot.
Well, Mr. William Hendershot. What if I was to say you was a no good son of a bitch and a liar?
Will, Ned, and the kid arrive into town during a rainstorm and enter Skinny's saloon. While Ned and the kid meet with the prostitutes upstairs, Little Bill confronts a feverish Will. Not realizing Will's identity, but correctly guessing that he wants the bounty, Bill confiscates his pistol and beats him. Ned and the kid escape through the back window and take Will to an unoccupied barn outside of town, where they and the prostitutes nurse him back to health. They should have just started a new life there. That's where they could have started the brothel.
They could bring him food. So the implication is that Morgan Freeman and the Scofield kid are getting laid the entire time, that
they're just burning through the purse already.
With advances.
Advances. Getting free ones, as they call them. This is where we get Clint's Oscar clip, though, in my opinion, where this following, of course, the reveal of the drawings, by the way, that we mentioned earlier, that are fucking hilarious. But they're lying in wait until he recovers, and his clip when he's like still sick and coming out of it, and I'm dying, and he explains he's all bloody and sweaty and just explaining to Ned the misfortunes that he's caused. And I can't remember at this point yet if he tells him to look after his kids, but it's Clint Eastwood on his deathbed. But then he wakes up the next day and his fever's broken. The hatchet-faced prostitute is nursing him back to health.
Yeah, he's pretty much back to normal. He didn't get long COVID. His was just like a 1 week ordeal.
A 24-hour bug. Or no, they said they were there for 3 days, so he had it over the weekend, long weekend.
Yeah. I think Alex said these guys are not very good at their job because this should have been a pretty
The prostitutes,
easy...
they're very wealthy.
Oh, no. They're great.
Oh, okay.
They're great. No, I'm talking about our trio of hired killers.
Okay.
For all their history and all the things that they talk about have been done. I mean, obviously, to say that they're a little rusty is underselling it. They're near incompetent. Did you feel that it was taking them way too long to accomplish something that should have been much easier?
Yeah, you would think, especially the way they talk about Ned, that he's like this amazing marksman with his rifle. You think they would have been able to just find who they were looking for and pick them off pretty quickly. It's like they had no game plan. They just talk about the old days of yore, the days, the glory days back when Clint Eastwood threw that touchdown pass to win the state championship, and Morgan Freeman hooked up with, whoever in the backseat of his car. But they get there and they're like, oh, what do we do now? Well, let's go fuck these prostitutes.
I mean, again, no technology, so there's no GPS. You're just riding your horse and hoping that it leads you to the right spot.
Oh, poor horsies. Clint Eastwood does have a really funny line, though, when he comes out of it and he's not sick anymore. He looks at Delilah, is that her name? He goes, you got to be the one those cowboys cut up. And then, she kind of just walks away a bit embarrassed. And then it snowed, so it went from rain to snow. So it's a very peaceful morning between Will Money and Delilah the prostitute with the scars on her face. She
offers him an advance.
She does. A free one.
It's not an advance. It's a freebie.
I think she asked him like,
fuck.
She asked him something like, are you really going to kill those cowboys? And he goes, I guess. He said, he answers the question in a very non-affirmative way. But did you notice that during this, where he rejects her advance to have sex with them, we get the De Palma split diopter shot?
Yep. No, it's like, oh, Alex is going to like this one.
Yeah, we had to call that out. And then Clint hits her with a noble lie of like, I have a wife. And she's like, oh, that's very admirable. He's like, yep. She's waiting for me at home.
Underground, but yes, she's there.
A few days later, the trio ambush Davy after missing Davy and shooting his horse. That's why I said, oh, poor horsies. That made me sad. Ned falters and Will shoots Davy instead. Ned decides to quit and return to Kansas. Not mentioned here, and something that I think is one of the more important things that we discuss in this film, is that one of the men here in the gang of cowboys is Lachlan Monroe. I said, is that fucking Lachlan Monroe? And then I squinted and I go, that's Lachlan Monroe. And credit to the man. This movie was like 10 years before Freddy vs. Jason. For a white dude, he didn't age that badly, man. He has the looks here, the very Lachlan Monroe face and hair already going. And his delivery is like, they killed Davy boy, I think is what he says. And it just made me laugh really hard. This is the fourth movie credit that he has. And if you know anything about him, he is a perennial that guy who was in a lot of not very good movies. Scary Movie. That's probably the thing most people know him for. Anyway, Lachlan Monroe appears. I have numerous hoots. And yes, he yells, I have it written down, you killed our Davy boy. It's a very awkward sequence, too, of like Ned just shutting down and not wanting to shoot. And then Clint Eastwood's like, well, I guess I will. And then shoots the kid and he kind of crawls and he's dying and there's no score to what's going on and it takes forever. It's a very uncomfortable piece of film.
Again, who was asking for this, right? Like, this is supposed to be an exciting moment of retribution. You're getting, this is the guy that Eastwood, again, milking it so we can feel bad for this asshole. This is the one that was giving the girl the pony. So to make everything better. It doesn't matter. Good. He got shot. Now can we just move on instead of staying here for like 15 minutes? Morgan Freeman pulls an Upham, right? He just freezes. All this buildup, an hour of buildup about how he can shoot the wings of a fly or whatever, and we don't get to see him do anything. It was like, it would be nice if at least one person in our crew was somewhat talented.
If he had like killed one person and then realized that he doesn't have it in himself anymore, but he just couldn't even do that. It was disappointing. Because, how often do we get to see Morgan Freeman pick fuckers off, man?
Give me one. If you're not going to give me the flashback, then let me see it in present day.
Sadly, Ned is later captured and flogged to death by Little Bill to learn the whereabouts of Will and the kid. Will takes the kid with him to the cowboy's ranch, directing him to ambush Quick Mike in the outhouse and shoot him. After they escape, a distraught kid drunkenly confesses he had never killed anyone before and is so overcome with remorse.
Eastwood goes, "What? No."
We'll circle back to some of the discussion there after we finish this paragraph. A prostitute arrives with the reward and tells them about Nate's fate. Shocked by the news, Will begins drinking and demands the kid's revolver. The kid hands it over, saying that he is no longer wanting to be a killer, and Will sends him back to Kansas to distribute the reward. I think Clint Eastwood wrote the line, "It's a hell of a thing, killing a man," and then built the rest of the movie around it. I think he woke up one night with a notepad next to his bed thinking of that line, wrote it down. He's like, all right, I got to figure out how to make a movie where I say this line.
He woke up in cold sweats, like thinking of all the people he had shot in the previous 20 movies he had made.
And then the scribbling, Lachlan Monroe.
It's a hell of a thing, killing a man. You take away all he's got and all he's ever gonna have.
So he delivers that line with the most Clint Eastwood conviction of the entire film. And I was just like, it's the one point where I was like, yes. Because he talks about, and then the kid's like, well, those guys had it coming. He said, we all have it coming. But yeah, it's very obvious that the kid had never killed before. He pauses for too long and he still kills the guy. He guns him down. When the prostitute arrives, and this happens throughout the movie, she's delivering this really like heavy, impactful, exposition. And there's several moments in the movie that are meant to be serious. And it's kind of hard to take it serious when they keep referring to the bathroom as the shit house. Like everyone does. The sweet, naive prostitute, this, docile young woman is just like, you killed that boy in the shit house. And Clint Eastwood's like, that's Christmas Vacation. Shitter's full. That's the same thing here. Nowadays, you call it the shit house. People say you're uncouth.
Were you disappointed? And not even I wasn't disappointed. I was outright shocked, outraged even for Morgan Freeman, because they kill him off screen. And they also tell you that they broke him off screen, which is probably the worst offense, right? The last time we see him, he's getting flogged and he's just standing strong. And then later on, when this girl's telling Eastwood and Scofield Kid about what happened, she's like, yeah, at first he resisted, but then eventually he gave you up. He gave Gene Hackman your backstory, and then they killed him anyway. I was like, man, I would have liked to see that. That sounds like an awesome scene. Maybe that would have gotten Freeman an Oscar, right? Like you see him break. He just can't handle the pain anymore, and he betrays his friend. That is a hell of a moment for that character, for the movie, because he's easily the most likable, maybe the only likable character in the movie. And we don't get to see that. We spent so much time with Gene Hackman spewing bullshit to his biographer, and we don't get to see the biggest moment in Morgan Freeman's character's arc. That's annoying. That kind of, it shows you where Eastwood's priorities were. And I think that maybe he was afraid that Freeman would take the spotlight, right? Like that would be maybe too much. And then, it's still a Clint Eastwood movie. I mean, in fact, that's what happened with $1 Million Baby, right? Mm-hmm. He gave Freeman an Oscar clip, and then Freeman won an Oscar and Eastwood didn't. So I think that's what was behind the shortchanging of the net character here.
And then he starts drinking again because he knows what he's about to do. That's the extent of it. Well, he's taking rips from that bottle, man. I enjoy a fine whiskey every now and then, but I was watching that like, whoop.
I mean, you gotta moderate yourself if you're gonna go on a killing rampage. You can't just.
I think it's gonna wasted. I think it's gonna steady his hand. To be honest, he's gonna be all right. So he talks about that throughout the movie. He was so good at killing because he would just get blackout drunk. Me, when I do that, I get shit in the mail from Amazon the next day or 2 days later that I'm like, what the fuck? That night, Will finds Ned's corpse displayed in a coffin outside Skinny's saloon. Inside, Little Bill and his deputies are organizing a posse. Will walks in alone, brandishing a shotgun, and kills Skinny for displaying Ned's corpse. I was down with that. That's fucked up.
Again, no shades of gray here.
We're not dealing with we were moderately civilized here. This wasn't roaming the countryside in the fucking 1400s or something. I watched Valhalla Rising recently. That's like Mads Mikkelsen, one of those way he marks territories he's been through is putting heads on pikes. And I was like, okay, I'm glad we've evolved from that. now you just put like political signs in your yard. He then aims at Little Bill, but the shotgun misfires. In the ensuing gunfight, Will shoots Little Bill and several other men with the revolver. He then orders the rest of the posse out. Beauchamp lingers briefly to ask how Will survived. Will replies that it was luck and it scares him away.
How is it that this dude doesn't piss himself again?
I thought the natural progression was going to be he shits his pants here. He's so scared.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, Eastwood shows up and all these guys are just awful shots and he just, guns them all down. Except Lachlan Monroe, I think I did see him in here. He's one of the guys that retreats out the back door when Will is like, anyone doesn't want to die, get out of here. And then he takes some time just fucking around with Beauchamp, which I guess is the spoiler alert for the warm up of where the Josh Gad minute might come into play.
How do you know that his shotgun misfired, Alex? Because Eastwood says misfire. Really? You doubt your audience that much? You didn't think that we were gonna figure that one out? Okay, well, this is the biggest. I have so many problems with this climax. One is that it took us forever to get here, and then it's all over in like 3 minutes, right? This entire movie has been a build up to Clint Eastwood killing the bad people. And then when it happens, I was like, man, I understand maybe the point is that all this violence is not supposed to be satisfying, but could you have tried a little harder? Like make it a big, like 15-minute set piece where we really get to see some gunplay. Like this is very, again, like the rest of this movie is just pretty straightforward. Like they shoot, then they shoot, then they shoot, then it's over. And that's it. And then on top of that, I have to believe that out of nowhere, this Clint Eastwood comes out to play. Like after spending the entire movie with the loser Clint Eastwood on a dime, like all it takes is his friend dying. And then suddenly he wakes up. Why couldn't he be that like this earlier in the movie? Like the Clint Eastwood that we see here in the climax.
We wouldn't have gotten to this situation if he had just done this earlier.
Exactly. It wouldn't have mattered if he had the COVID or not. Like he would have kicked ass anyway. This is like the guy from the stories. Like when the Schofield kid was saying, hey, I heard that it was you against like 20 people and you shot them all. I was like, I didn't buy it. And then you see it in the climax. I was like, oh, he was talking about this guy. Well, where was this guy? Why didn't he come up when it mattered?
I was lucky in the order. But I've always been lucky when it comes to killing folks.
Little Bill tries and fails to take another shot while lying on the floor. He is not quite dead yet. He comes to and he tries to be as, slick about it as possible, but Clint Eastwood's too good for it. He then bemoans his fate and curses Will, who shoots him dead. Very just execution style. He has that, I don't deserve to die like this. I'm building a house, Will shouts threats as he mounts his horse and rides out of town. All right, that is an oversimplification because he has God damn, if he delivered this speech tomorrow on national television, he would be the president of the United States next month. Where he comes out and this is why I know this movie. And I know this speech probably, I'm not going to say verbatim, but I hear it in my mind and it's something that we've joked about, me and my friends, of just inserting it into playing video games or, watching a fighter says something out loud to another one before a fight. We're like, oh man, he's got to give him the Unforgiven speech now. But it's this is where Clint Eastwood, I assume this was his Oscar clip because this is, unless you're thinking of something else, Julio, this is the most famous part of this movie. It
definitely is. I mean, short of it's this speech and also the overhead shot of Gene Hackman before he dies when he's just on his back. Completely helpless. If the Academy was feeling mushy that year, it would have been the clip of him talking to Delilah when he's telling her, I didn't mean you were ugly. I just meant that your face is cut. So I figured out you were the one that was attacked by those guys. But no, it has to be this. I mean, that is probably... Unforgiven did two things. It revived Clint Eastwood's career and it made the speech part of pop culture.
Yeah, it's one of those when you see those highlight reels of famous moments in movies. And for those of you who somehow don't know what we're talking about or have never seen this movie, or to be honest, our international listeners, this movie may not be as popular in their culture as it is here, because Eastwood says, I'm coming out. Any man takes a shot at me, not only am I going to kill him, but I'm going to find his wife and kill her, burn his house down. I think he even says something like kill his horses or something. But he just gets up and walks out of town. And there's one guy who has him clearing a shot. And he's just like, nope, I'm not a deputy. Not going to do it. And so he gets on his horse and he tells them they better give Ned a proper burial. And he rides back home. A closing title card states that Will's mother-in-law found his farm abandoned years later, Will having possibly moved to San Francisco with his children, and she remained at a loss to understand why her daughter married such a notorious outlaw and murderer. I laughed out loud when it said it was rumored that he had made his way out to San Francisco and done well in dried goods. Like it was, I'm just imagining Clint Eastwood selling oatmeal or some shit.
So he gets a happy ending after everything.
Yes. After talking about how evil he is, how bad of a guy he was, and still is here.
Yeah. So is he a bad guy? I mean, he is, right? He killed women and children. Killing Gene Hackman doesn't erase that. Do you believe that Eastwood wants us to be happy that his character had one last adventure and came out victorious at the expense of Morgan Freeman? But, you know, he triumphed and then he retired to California.
This is before Florida was the retirement capital of the United States. Peeking a bit into our second half into Real Talk, what I take away from this is not necessarily the juxtaposition of good versus evil or a good man versus a bad man. I think this movie is way more interested with telling the tale of the Wild West and what men could get away with if they deemed it necessary for their survival, and particularly in this case for the betterment of one's family. You know, he goes back and kills Gene Hackman and all those dudes out of vengeance for Ned, but the whole reason he set off to kill some dudes to begin with was to have a better life for his family.
But he didn't get the money because he gave the money to Ned's family.
He gave him his cut. He said, take his cut back to his kids. No. He gave him instructions of what to do with the money. He said, take my cut back to my kids, and if I'm not back in 2 weeks, give half of it to their neighbor or whatever. So who knows?
Do you think that money made it? Don't you think the Scofield kid just took off?
Well, the problem was there was a tracking device in it. So he got like to a motel near a border town, and then Anton Chigurh tracked him down. It
just exploded and he was all blue.
Even better. That's like the post-credit scene. Yeah, closing point. I think it's this movie's way more interested in telling the tale of a not so long ago piece of American history than it is like, oh, what a good guy. See, that's closing Contrarians Corner here with Gran Torino. That's the thing about Gran Torino is he's supposed to be like the hero in that movie. And he sings over the closing credits. Here we get some the score to this movie is very pleasant. I'm not going to lie.
But were you hoping for a little Eastwood crooning?
Am I unforgiven? This was after the Black Album, so it could have been a cover of Unforgiven by Metallica. So I dubbed the Unforgiven. And then he performs it at the Oscars. Like, oh, Jesus.
Morgan Freeman and the Scofield kid in the background.
Yeah, with the flying V guitars. Yeah.
All right, let's go to Real Talk.
Let's do.